Afternoon everyone, thanks for tuning into the next episode. I haven't really done much filming in the last week or so just because I've been a little bit busy at work and had a couple of flying lessons that I want to talk to you about. I thought I'd share with you how they went and a couple of bits of theory that I've been picking up whilst I've been sat on the ground with the bad weather recently. So I've had 2 lessons since I last recorded. The first one was cancelled because the weather was pretty awful. So we spent the time instead using some of the theory books around meteorology. So I learnt about cold fronts, warm fronts and occluded fronts, and I'll show you a little bit more about that in a second. Also learnt how to read METARs, which is the current weather at an aerodrome, and TAFs, which is the forecasted weather for an aerodrome. The instructor printed off a whole load of information from the Met Office for me, which was really useful. And we walked through it all so that I knew how to read METARs and TAFs, and also some of the area forecast information that you get from the Met Office. I'm not sure if you know, but there is a free access to area for the Met Office website. You can go on there and you can get all of the briefing notes for the day's weather. I think there's a premium version that you pay for, but to be honest I couldn't really see what benefit that got. I got enough information from the free area. So I'll pop the link on the screen and in the bio for the video, because I really recommend going to the general aviation area of the Met Office website. Also taught me about overhead joins. So when you're approaching an airfield and need to join the circuit, you can join at any of the legs of the circuit, or can be asked to join overhead. So again, I'll talk you through that in a second because I've done a little diagram that explains it. And also, nerdy, but I got to drive or taxi one of the Cessna 152s to put them away because I was at the aerodrome so late that day whilst we were doing theory. And it was really interesting being in it because obviously I'm used to practicing in the PA-28. The Cessna is tiny, you're pretty much sat on the instructor's lap, which is fine if you get on, but I can imagine it could be a little bit awkward if you're not the bestest of friends. So yeah, it was tiny, but I got to start it, followed all the checklists to start it, and then was able to taxi it on the ground so that they could put them away and hang, which is a really nerdy but cool thing to be able to do. So what I'll do now is just take you through some more detail on the topics that I learned with the instructor whilst we were waiting for the bad weather to pass a couple of lessons ago. So the first thing is the standard overhead join. I'm showing you here the runway designation for Wickham, but I should call out that Wickham doesn't use a standard overhead join. It's got a slightly different procedure because of the noise abatement zones around the aerodrome. So what I'm showing on the screen is a standard picture, and perhaps when I learn the proper procedure for Wickham, I'll change it and show you that and call out what the differences are. So for now, let's just pretend that they have a standard overhead join. So I'm showing you here a typical left-hand circuit height 1000 feet QFE. And that circuit side, so the side which the traffic's turning when they're in the circuit, is referred to as the live side here. And on the opposite scale, on the opposite side is the dead side, which is the side that the circuit isn't using. So you can see the green line showing the standard 1000 foot circuit. And when you want to do an overhead join to join the circuit at an aerodrome, you approach at 2000 feet, so 1000 feet clear of the circuit heights and the traffic within the circuit. You make your call to the air traffic services at the aerodrome to request a join. If they give you an overhead join, you cross the live threshold at 2000 feet, and then you turn into the dead side downwind, and when you're there you do like a dead side call and descend to 1500 feet. Once you're given permission to join the circuit, you then cross the non-live side thresholds, descending to 1000 feet, and then you join the downwind leg as you normally would do, make your downwind call, and then expect to receive clearance from the tower to finish the circuit and land if that's what you're planning to do. So that's the standard overhead join. I also learned about the weather. So the first picture I'm showing you is cold fronts and how cumulus clouds turn into cumulus nimbus clouds as the front develops. The big red cross is where you see the worst turbulence in this kind of weather. So up at the top of the anvil shape of a cumulus nimbus cloud, the air is really turbulent. You can also see there the Met Office symbol for severe turbulence, which I learnt through reading the forecast charts with Ben a couple of weeks ago. So this weather phenomenon occurs anywhere between 6,500 feet all the way up to 50,000 feet. And also in the bottom left you can see the symbol that the Met Office uses for a cold front. So it's like the line with the little triangles on before. So next up I'm showing you a warm front and just the different types of clouds now. So now we're talking, instead of nimbus clouds, we're talking, cumulus clouds, we're talking about stratus clouds. So we've got stratus, nimbostratus, altostratus and cumulus stratus. And those clouds are happening anywhere from 12,000 feet all the way up to 30,000 feet. Generally speaking, they're dumping a lot of rain or water in the kind of lower levels. And then lastly, I just wanted to show you what they call an occluded front, which seems to be the worst of both sets of weather, where you've got towering cumulus and cumulus nimbus and thunderstorms where the cold air meets the warm air, and following the cold front in is all of the wet weather coming from nimbostratus, altostratus and cirrostratus. So yeah, I think you pretty much want to avoid these. And again, the symbol is in the bottom left, showing both symbol elements from cold and warm fronts. So just wanted to share that with you. Obviously feel free to comment if there's anything that I've missed or misunderstood, because it's always helpful to learn. So next up I'll talk to you about the last lesson that I had. So after the study session that we had to learn about weather, I booked in a lesson which was on a Tuesday after work, so flying at 5:30. And the difference in the weather between the two lessons was incredible, because it was miserable the day that we sat doing the theory work, but on the evening of the lesson the skies were completely clear, the sun was just starting to set, so the lighting was really pretty, and the skies were really quiet. There didn't seem to be very many other people up there at all. So it was a really great lesson. We did climbing and descending, which was actually really cool to put it into practice, because one thing that I wasn't really getting when I read the theory books was how holding the pitch for an airspeed worked. But in the practical lesson it made total sense, and actually I found it easier to do than I thought I would do. I wouldn't say easy, but actually being able to concentrate on the right things at the right time meant that the performance of the aircraft was as I wanted it to be. So that was really good fun. One thing I found really interesting though was I'd done a full day in the office before the lesson, and so when I got there my mind was still quite buzzy from all of the work that I'd done that day. So my mental capacity for learning wasn't anywhere near what it was like when I have a lesson at the weekend. So I was having to focus a lot. There was a change of aircraft at the last minute. I was expecting to be in Golf Delta Romeo, and I was in Golf Echo Golf Lima Lima. And for some reason, I couldn't get the call sign right on any of my radio calls. And I think it's just because my mental capacity was diminished from the work that I'd done that day, and the fact that I'd prepared to be in one aircraft and not another. So that was really interesting. I also had a set of headphones that the flying school had lent me. The sound was awful in them, so I was finding it really difficult to hear and understand what the air traffic services team were telling me. So I'm not sure what lesson that is, other than to get a decent headset. Because obviously once I'm in the aircraft and I've started up, the last thing I want to be doing is shutting down and running back in to get another headset. So I think I'm probably going to have to bite the bullet at some point soon and get myself a new one. Unfortunately, the one I want is the Bose aviation headset, but it's about £900 and I don't have that just now. So we'll just have to watch this space and see what happens, if I save enough or whether I have to wait a few more months to buy that. So anyway, as I was saying, I did climbing and descending, and although I struggled with the radio telephony side of things, the feedback from my instructor at the end of the lesson was really positive. He was really happy with the flying that I'd done, and I was able to level off at the altitudes that I wanted to. So I was really happy with how that had gone. Again, in the flight I was doing Frida checks, and I think something that I need to get used to is when I'm doing checks in the aircraft and I'm looking away, generally the aircraft's following where I'm looking, or if I'm looking down, suddenly I'm not maintaining the right level flight, for example. So I need to work on that and pay a bit more attention when I'm doing those checks. I think that will come, and I'm almost certain it happens when you're in a car, you know, like if you look to change something on the radio, for example, you suddenly might not be in the lane that you were before. So I think I just need to pay a bit more attention when I'm doing that. It was quite cool though, because at the end of this lesson I've got almost 5 hours in my logbook now, which is really cool. Also, before we took off, I did an A check, and if you've followed my previous episodes, I'd messed up badly on the last A check I did, so I was able to do one, and I covered everything, and the instructor walked around after me, and there was no issues, so I was really happy with that. I also double checked that I know how to close the cowls on the engine coverings on the aircraft now, so I'm almost certain that won't happen to me again. So really happy with that. In other news, I met a chap at a wedding last weekend who is an air traffic controller at Heathrow. So I'm desperately trying to see if I can get a visit up there, just because I think it would be absolutely fascinating to go in and see. Yeah, so watch this space, I'll let you know if he responds to me. But for now, I think that's probably all I wanted to cover. As usual, take a look at my Instagram and Twitter feeds. You can direct message me on there if you wanted to send me any feedback or ask me any questions or any topics for later episodes. But for now, just wanted to say thanks very much for tuning in, and I'll see you all soon.